Hi everyone and welcome to our viral carousel workshop. So I'm very excited to be sharing this with you because I really think this is going to help a lot of you business owners and also content creators that are looking to create content but you don't really have the time, you don't really have specific skill sets, for example videography or video editing, and this actually helps you to create a lot of content within a short span of time. And it also doesn't require you to do certain things like step in front of the camera or go and actually edit. So this will help you to create a lot. At the same time, you don't need the specific skill sets, you don't need a lot of time, and you still have a lot of potential for virality. So I'm going to be sharing with you a lot of things that I know about carousel that I've learned along the ways, that I've made a lot of mistakes on, and I hope this genuinely helps you. So let's start off first. Why carousels? So carousels are super easy to make, right? What you're basically doing is just gather a bunch of photos, and depending on your carousel type that I'll be going through later, you'll just need to stitch these photos together, add some text, and you're basically good to go. You don't need to have any design skill sets, and in fact sometimes putting in too much work into the design actually detracts away from being authentic. Right, so carousels kind of come across that way sometimes. It just looks like a random guy or a random person just coming together, taking some old photos and telling a story or talking about a certain subject. And that is the charm of carousels, right? There are also different types of carousels. Like some people really like to design their carousels super well. I tend to see that more for people who are like more artsy, have a design background, but it's completely not needed, right? We have gotten hundreds of thousands of views on our carousels just by having, I don't even have any design skills, so it's purely just from understanding a few concepts. Next, potential for virality. Like I said, I'm going to be showing you some examples. Actually, I'll show them to you now, right? Of carousels that have gone extremely viral for us and our clients. And I hope this gives you enough reason to watch this video and to eventually create your own carousels. So let me just go through some examples. The first one we have is something we did for the Strength Yard. So we did a storytelling carousel for them, talking about their years and journey of basically building up the Strength Yard, right? So I'll go through some of the elements of why this carousel actually went viral. I think it got about 300 plus or 400 plus thousand views. You can see there's pretty decent engagement as well, not that many comments, but a lot of engagement, right? So this basically talks about their journey, 11 years, how two friends built a business that has survived more than a decade, and then it just goes through the different years. This is what is known as a storytelling carousel. Okay, so as you can see, like there's no design in it at all. These are all just old pictures that we got the owners to provide us, and then we basically helped to script the different parts of the carousel. And yeah, this carousel really blew up. So you can see that certain parts really have like intentional, like imperfect design, and that's really like, because we wanted to make it seem like it was the owners that did this carousel, right? Okay, so another carousel that we did for one of our other clients that also went very viral, I think this got about 200,000 views. It's just basically doing like a very casual showcase about certain bathroom mistakes that this this gentleman doesn't want to talk about, right? So this is actually an ID firm, right? And we wanted to present them as an authority, but as you can see, like, on Instagram and TikTok, everyone's coming across as very um, kind of like very serious. And in an industry like ID where it's very competitive, everybody has the same like tips, right? We wanted to portray something else, which was them being very chill, and both of them are kind of older, like they're like 50 plus. So what we wanted to do was really to portray them as some people that are friendly and approachable. So as you can see, this got really good engagement, 5,000 over likes, a ton of shares, right? Because these bathroom tips are actual bathroom tips from ID. So we played a pretty funny sound as well. I'm gonna play it for you. If you can hear it. So basically, we wanted to make it like a bit more funny, and we put in elements of their own journey as an ID as well. And you can see that the design is very simple, nothing complicated, just basically using Canva, using pictures that they took with their phone, and just kind of portraying them as a authority without explicitly saying like, oh, I'm an authority in an ID space, that kind of thing. So yeah, this did really well, set them apart from other IDs who are doing the same mode. They're unfortunately not our client anymore, and unfortunately they went with a more professional kind of firm, but we'll see which produces better results. Okay, so that's the next carousel. This is what we call a value driven carousel, basically in this case kind of educating people but in a less serious tone. Another example, this is a carousel I did for one of my clients, Rash. So essentially this is a storytelling carousel as well. This has gotten about 90,000 views at this point on Instagram, and on TikTok it's about 5,000, 6,000 views, right? So almost 100,000 combined. It's also a storytelling carousel, basically talking about his journey and how like nowadays everybody sees him as a millionaire who's very successful, but some of the struggles he went through, and the ups and downs that he did. And as you can see, right, same archetype, not that much design, very old pictures, just sharing his thoughts, making it look like he created it and it wasn't like something professionally created, right? That was really the whole point of this. Okay, so you can see that you don't even need to take like nice pictures. These pictures are just random pictures from his past, from his phone. And yeah, the main point about these storytelling carousels is that it actually tells a story. And when you see old pictures like this, it really portrays like authenticity and the fact that these are real, authentic, raw shots, right? They're not anything curated. They are just things that have actually happened throughout his journey. Okay, I'm going to be showing you another example, but we're going to use that as a case study. This was actually done by my intern, and I'm going to show you some of the thoughts that I have about his work, and you can use that as feedback for your own work as well. Alright, so yes, a lot of potential for variety, right? Don't just think that videos are the only format that you can use. You can also use carousels, and you can easily do it on Canva. Okay, the next one that this is my own personal opinion. I don't know if this is actually true, but I do believe that one reason why carousels work is that there's there's intentional viewership. So what I mean by that is that when you go to a carousel, it doesn't just automatically swipe, right? For example, if I were to watch a reel like this, it will automatically go to the next page, right? In fact, this is actually, I guess, somewhat of a carousel. It's like a real X carousel format. It basically is just a bunch of pictures with text, right? And this did really well as well. I think it got like 30,000 views right now as of 2 days, a 2-day period. So done really well. Just goes to show that oftentimes you are just overthinking on your content, and creating content is not supposed to be that difficult, right? You're just using stories, you're just using experiences that you have to basically create the content. So compare this with like carousels, you can see that in a carousel format, you actually need to click to go to the next page. So it's really different, right? It's good and bad on two fronts, right? The good is that when people click, they are actually wanting to see what's next, right? And I'll talk about this in the carousel strategy part later. But what you get are people who actually want to watch this. These are not people can't go to the next page without actively clicking, and so you know that they're interested. And with Instagram and TikTok analytics nowadays, you can actually see when people are liking the post. So you can see like, did they like it on this picture, that picture, and you can see what people resonate with. Alright, so I really like carousels because it gives that kind of intentional viewership, and you really know like, okay, like this guy or like this bunch of people, they actually went to the end. I know you can see that for reels as well, but I feel like it's really more purposeful with carousels. Okay, next, adaptability, right? So if you haven't watched my ideation video, please go and watch it. It's in our channel. basically teaches you how to ideate different videos so that you have unlimited videos or unlimited carousels even to basically create your own content. But carousels are good because you can basically mix and match, right? You can take somebody else's carousel or somebody else's video and make it into a carousel, right? So everyone's hard work into making a video, you can basically translate that into a carousel so you can pump it out way faster. That's a good thing about carousels. It looks more authentic, right? So I've been saying this over and over again, but basically carousels, you can definitely make them really nice design if you have the skill. But if you don't have the skill, it's totally fine as well. You can just, make it look like, for example, this guy just took out his phone, found a bunch of old pictures, and used Instagram to basically put in these tags, right? It kind of looks like that, and a lot of times these do well because it doesn't look something that was created by a professional. It doesn't look like something that was like purposefully crafted. It just looks like someone's authentic thoughts which people buy into. Okay, so let's talk about some carousel types that we've already went through. The first one is storytelling. I've already went through that. And the second one is value driven. So you can choose which one you want to do. I would suggest to actually have a mix of both, because ultimately people buy from people and people buy from experts. So you need to have a blend of both in order for people to get to actually buy from you. And you can know more about this strategy in my other video. I believe it is called how to I don't know, it's basically my full course of 40 minutes completely free on YouTube. You can learn about how everything connects and creates a sales funnel for your Instagram. There's also another type of carousel which I don't really have a name for it, but I'm going to call it pure authentic. It is very hit or miss, right? But sometimes it really hits, and I'm going to show you an example of that. So this is something that my client did by himself. He just like randomly posted on Facebook, and basically as you can see, right, I don't know if you can see it from here. No, you can't see it from here, but he posted this random set of pictures, and Instagram will automatically read it as a carousel. Alright, so a bunch of pictures, and essentially what happened here was this was the height of the silver bull run in 2026, right? The height of silver bull run, and he just posted this picture about a sign he saw at the silver store. This thing went absolutely viral, got about 700,000+ views. He just posted like a brief kind of like blurb here about his thoughts, right, on the silver thing, and I guess because it was in trend, it went really viral. And as you can see, these are just random photos he took with his phone. Okay, just so you know, like nowadays with Instagram, you can also post you can also post videos in your carousel. So this is another client that we worked with, that we basically helped her go viral as well. So yeah, I don't know where that one is, but yeah, so I think it's on TikTok actually that it went quite viral. Let me just find it for you guys. What is this? Insane. Not even logged in. But let's go to Love for Pause. Yeah, so we helped her to create some carousels, and you can see that they're not doing the best, but they're also doing pretty well. 8,000 views, 1,000+ views. We just posted this, and basically as you can see, we don't work for her anymore, but this was like the last content piece we did. It basically got 3,000 views, and you can see on TikTok it doesn't show up as a video like this, but on Instagram, let's take a look. Sorry about that. Just go take it off. Yeah, so on Instagram you can see that you are now able to post reels like this, right? So these are some examples of like carousel types that you can use, and this is an example of like storytelling as well. Okay, so let's look at carousel structure. Okay, so carousel structure is basically how do we actually structure our carousel so that it fulfills what is still viral and what is still considered like something that people swipe on, right? So I'm going to be using one of our best carousels, right, the strength yard, to illustrate what are some of the things that you need for your carousel, Alright, so let's go back to that very viral carousel, this one. Okay, so first of all, as with all content, your first thing that you need to take care of is your hooks. Alright, so in this case, there's a very clear, obvious visual hook, which is the fact that there are four really shredded guys, and they're all like posing for the camera, right? So naturally, that is the visual hook. Okay, the second good hook in this case is the text hook, right? So this text hook is what I personally call like a conflict hook. So basically, what happens in this case is that you are putting up a phrase where people kind of can relate to. At the same time, it's quite sensational, right? Because if you just stumble upon this on your front page, you might be thinking that this is going to be talking about someone complaining about their friend, right? About doing business with their friend, and you probably think like, oh, this is going to be about uh, how they fell out and things like that, right? So this is like a strong text and a strong visual hook, which is what I believe has caused this to go viral. The second part of a carousel is the second slide, obviously, but the second slide is also very important because it needs to. Okay, because for Instagram and for TikTok, I believe it they do tend to show the second slide as the first slide sometimes. Okay, so you need to be very, very careful about this. Your second slide also needs to hook people in, because if it doesn't, then the people that are shown the second slide as the first slide may just swipe away. Okay, on the second slide, I like to introduce a bit of context. I like to still have a good hook. So in this case, why I think this worked out was because we are trying to include certain parts of relatability, right? So what I wanted to do was to talk about friends building a business. This is something that a lot of business owners can relate to. A lot of business owners go into business as friends. But at the same time, like, I wanted this to be a bit sensational as well. I wanted it to be, I wanted to use words like survived, right? Friends and survive. This is something that I think a lot of people talk about. A lot of people have relatability in, but at the same time, like, this is quite sensational, right? Because not many people, first of all, build a business with a friend for 10 years, and second of all, not many business survives. So this is something that I believe will pique people's interest. At the same time, I put this visual hook because I chose this picture because it kind of shows like these two here, so something quite cute. At the same time, it shows the authentic nature of this thing, right? So a lot of people nowadays like to buy from authenticity. They like to know that what they are seeing is not something curated, it's not something polished, and a lot of people just want to showcase like the perfect gym, but in this case it's like really like the trash is here and they are still building gym, right? So then it goes into the actual kind of actual content. So the thing about carousels is there's no right and wrong. You can be as detailed as you want, you can be as least detailed as you want. For us, what we try to do is we try to make it as casual, as least detailed as possible, right? The reason why we do this is because, number one, you might have experienced reading a book, right? And how often than not do you have the experience where you're trying to read the book and then you lose attention? It's the same thing here, right? If we put in too much words, we put in too difficult words, people won't really understand. So what we do is we just put like as simple as possible to describe what happened before this timeline. And obviously a shit ton of stuff happened, right? But we just need to condense what's important in our storytelling. Okay, so another thing to take note of is to make sure that the picture has somewhat something to do with whatever is written on screen, right? We purposely chose like an older kind of picture, like him younger, like them younger, and in this case it says like started out as secondary school friends, so this kind of looks like they're in secondary school, and that's why we chose this picture. So make sure that there's some relevance. Okay, I love this picture, right? Because it really shows what the gym was like when it was being built, like the good old days and stuff like that, right? So it's also good for storytelling carousels to have some form of like reflection or inner thoughts, and in this case like we put in this to signify that. Okay, so as you can see, pretty bad picture in all aspects, but really showcasing the raw, authentic times, right? And you know, to show that they were once somewhat like the underdog. As you can see here, it's him kind of like building his gym from scratch. Yeah, so this is and for carousels, I mean for all content, you can also put in different pictures in the same frame. Okay, so it goes through like, you know, the timeline that they had. You can see that it's really using like really simple kind of text, right? We're not like explaining it in great detail. We're not trying to sound sophisticated. It really looks like they typed it out themselves. Okay, so just remember to put in your real thoughts, your real kind of experiences as you're writing these things, but don't make it too difficult because people's attention spans are too low. Okay, and at the end, a call to action to follow them on the journey. So that's an example of a storytelling carousel. Okay, I'm gonna go into the structure for the value-driven one. Okay, so for value-driven carousels, it's equally important to have a good hook, right? In this case, why I think this was a good hook, because as you can see, like it's something funny, right? And in this case, we also have good audio, right? So basically, like people when they watch this, they know like this is gonna be a humorous thing, and it cuts through the noise because every single ID is trying to talk about the tips that they had, but they present themselves as like very professional. So it doesn't really come across as like something authentic. It just looks like a curated piece of work, and because people don't like to be sold to, they may skip that, right? I mean, I've seen 1,000 IDs trying to talk about why they're the expert, but never really seen something like this. So as you can see, it's something, I guess, relatable. Everyone goes to the toilet. Everyone sees mistakes in their toilet, right? And as you can see, like I think it really worked out well that, you know, he was dressed like this. It looks like he's at home. He doesn't look anything like an ID, so people don't think that they are being sold to, and people don't see the agenda in this thing, right? And as you can see, it's like pretty funny, right? Like he's kind of closing his nose. Fun fact, like his daughters actually took this for him, so completely awesome. So good hook. Second slide, remember it has to be hooked as well. We purposely made it funny, right? So we said something like, I've gone to the toilet for 52 years of my life. Like who on earth says that, right? Nobody at their age says I've gone to the toilet for XXX number of years in my life. And then here's where we introduce a bit of the context. He basically has been he's basically an interior designer that has been helping to design toilets. So something more funny, right? You got to realize that on Instagram and TikTok, nobody wants to be sold to. Everyone there is there for a few reasons, either to be inspired, either to be educated, or to be, what's the last one, entertained, right? So in this case, why it worked out well, because people are both educated and and entertained, right? So the next one is we basically go into talking about the actual tips, right? Oh, I just realized there's a spelling mistake here, but it's okay. In fact, I mean, not to give myself any credit for this, or you know, not to excuse myself, but this may have helped. I don't know, right? It may have helped because it looks like he is the one that actually created this. I'm not sure, right? But obviously we didn't intentionally do that. I'm not gonna lie and say that we intentionally did that, but um, this is a good structure that we had, because the first title at the top has to be basically the exact value that they're given for value driven stuff, right? So the exact value, but we also don't want to say it in a boring way, right? So for example, if you say something like uh, windows windows are not the only ventilation source, right? That sounds very boring. That sounds something like an ID would say. That's why we put relying on windows for ventilation, right? And we want to put something more interesting, right? We want it to be more hilarious, more suited to the narrative that we're trying to create, that, you know, it's this uncle that created this carousel, right? So we talked about how, according to his daughters, windows are not enough, obviously alluding to the fact that, you know, he's his excrement is very smelly, right? And then him like giving a cheeky "I wonder why." Okay, so the actual tip here: get a mechanical vent, right? So this will bring it back that he's an ID, he knows what he's talking about. Okay, so we just wanted to use things that would relate to his persona of being like somewhat older. So we talked about the fact that his back will hurt, especially at 52, right? So again, like value, right? Relatability, and the title, which is the actual value, which is the overall value. Okay. This one, nothing that much, right? So mainly, I think just the fact that he's squatting in a funny position. It's kind of a blurry shot, looks authentic, and basically, yeah, there's nothing much about this. Okay, and the rest of the carousel goes on talking about the value that he has. And the last call to action, something pretty casual, right? If you want tips on how to improve your toilet, follow me. Most people say something like, if you want to hire a professional interior designer, follow me. But this guy, or the way that we kind of put this script in, is to make it a bit more funny, like real uncle, like what he would say, something funny, right? Okay, so that's carousel structure. I've already gone through carousel must-haves, right? So just to go through it very briefly again, remember to have a good hook. If possible, have a good text, visual, and audio hook. Remember, slide 2 is also where people might start with, so do remember to have a good hook as well as a brief context. Basically, why people should carry on reading. Okay, in each slide, remember that having good visuals and relevant visuals is important. Remember that adding your own story is always a good thing. Adding authority is a good thing, especially for value-driven ones. And always have titles that basically summarize the whole thing, right? Give the readers like a good reason why they should be reading the rest. Okay. And lastly, a good CTA, right? So something that doesn't seem to be too salesy, something that's very casual. That's what makes good CTAs. Okay, next one, carousel mistakes. So let's look at not really carousel mistakes. So let's look at a case study that's actually done by my intern, and I'm gonna go through some of the comments I gave him on how to improve the carousels. If you are making carousels, I believe this would be something that would be helpful for you as well. Alright, so let's look at my intern's work. I'm not really using this to shame him or anything, just really thought like it's a good learning experience for everyone, and I hope the comments are detailed and helpful, right? So as usual, he's an intern, so he's here to learn. It's not easy to get good at carousels, right? I'm still learning as well, but these are some ways that I will actually change the carousel that he's creating. So he's creating this carousel for Rash, who is one of my clients, and let's take a look at what he has done. I have not changed anything, I've just left comments. Okay, so let's see what are some of the changes. Okay, so let's start with the start, right? So remember, the start is supposed to be a hook, right? You're supposed to draw people in, and you're supposed to basically get people curious, right? Through three elements. Number one is audio, number two is visual, and number three is text, right? So essentially what we have here, at least in this phase, is supposed to be the visual and the text hook. Alright? So in this case, let's take a look at the visual hook first. Right? So the visual hook is, I guess it was supposed to be, him, right, in this pretty sleek suit, I might say. And I guess he was trying to portray this lady here. But the problem is, when a random person sees this picture, yes, he does see Rash over there, but I think one element is missing, right? Which is the fact that most people don't know who this lady is. And actually this lady is Mary Buffett, who I believe is either the daughter or the granddaughter or something like that, or the daughter-in-law of Warren Buffett, right? So everybody knows who Warren Buffett is, or most people know who Warren Buffett is, but not many people know who Mary Buffett is, which is a great waste if I were to just post it like this, because the fact of the matter is that most people who see this will just not understand the significance of Rash being on the same stage talking with Mary Buffett. So it loses that credibility of setting himself as the authority. Right, so what I gave him as the feedback was to actually put in an arrow saying that this is Mary Buffett and who she is, right? So I think it's daughter-in-law of Warren Buffett. So instantly it adds credibility. Oh damn, this guy is someone important. This guy is someone legit, because why else would he be sitting next to Mary Buffett? Okay, let's look at a text hook. Okay, so a text hook is how to build finance knowledge from scratch. And again, like where we got this idea is from another viral content, right? I really want to emphasize, if you haven't watched my ideation video, please go and watch it. But I'm going to show you where we got this idea from. Okay, so we actually got this idea from this video, which is just a video of this guy here just doing random stuff in the office. How to build finance knowledge from scratch from a 28-year-old self-made millionaire. Okay, so what he did was he basically referenced that and adapted it to Rash's story, right, which is part of our framework for creating unlimited ideas. So what he did is that he adapted it to Rash, basically how to build finance knowledge from scratch, same thing, right? In fact, it's the same thing. And then what he tried to do is to adapt it to Rash context, which is from someone who made his first million at 27, right? So something that I would, some comments that I'll give is that I actually think we should always think about what made the previous, or the thing that we're referencing, go viral. And in this case, if you look at his exact hook, he actually named himself as a self-made millionaire, right? I think that lends a lot of credibility, and I think that makes people more interested, because not many people are able to become a self-made millionaire at such a young age. So oftentimes, like, try not to remove things that you don't need to remove. Also, like, have a deeper understanding as to why that worked, or why did that help. And if it did help, then keep it in. Okay. Let's see what other things I put in. Okay, so the next thing is so the next thing about carousels, which I haven't talked about, is at every slide of the carousel, you need to give the reader a reason for why they should go to the next slide, right? This is something that's a bit more difficult to achieve. It requires a certain bit of nuance, right? And this can be achieved in a few ways. Number one, it could be just the flow of your story. Number two, it could be explicit, right? Adding arrows like this, or just to give a bit of a nudge, or at the same time creating a good suspense or a good like payoff at the end, for example, in this case, that will make people want to read to the end, right? In this case, like, the issue with this is that the bonus here, or like the thing that will make people swipe here, is too vague, right? Read to the end for a bonus. Like, what does that actually mean? Does that actually mean or what does the bonus actually mean, right? If I were to say to you, like, you need to spend $1 million, and if you do, I'll give you a secret bonus. But if you don't know what that bonus is, you won't entice people as to why they should actually continue reading the carousel. So that's a bit of a problem, right? We want people to swipe, but at the same time, this is kind of ambiguous. And, in fact, like, this may dissuade people from swiping because it's too ambiguous, right? So the next slide that he gave is this picture of him with Robert Kiyosaki, and the reason why I don't think this is a good second slide is, first of all, remember what I said, like, the second slide is often the first slide. And if I were to scroll on Instagram and I suddenly came across this slide of this gentleman with Robert Kiyosaki, and at the top I see reading finance books, this may not be something that I want to look at, because first of all, like, this came from nowhere, right? I'm scrolling on Instagram, I suddenly see reading finance books. This doesn't give me any context as to why I should be reading this. It doesn't hook me in, right? Reading finance books sounds like something boring. I don't think I would want to read this page. I don't think I would want to read this carousel. And for that reason, I don't think this is a good first slide, right? Probably the only good thing about this is the fact that Robert Kiyosaki is there, and so that might be something interesting, but it's not that good, right? So as I've said, right, it needs to spark some kind of curiosity, right? So I've seen, just to give you an example, I've seen this carousel where I saw this guy posting about like 10 ways to boost productivity, and his second slide is basically some random thing like bamboo bed sheets, right? And if I came across that, I might be curious, like why is there a carousel, or why is bamboo bed sheets coming across my feed, right? Also, like if people had started from the first slide, most people would think that if someone's talking about productivity, they'll be talking about like, oh, buy a kitchen timer, or like lock your phone away. But then like some random tip of like buying bamboo bed sheets is then said. So that might spark more curiosity as well. Okay. The second thing is like what I would change about this is that this is too literal. Like reading finance books is something so boring. Like I mean, I don't mean that as an insult, but like genuinely, if someone were to see this, it's kind of boring and it may come across as like okay. So in slide 2, I usually like to give context, right? So I'll give you an example of like that kind of context. So that kind of context might be something like this, right? It's been 11 years now since we opened this gym. So there's a bit of context for what we did with Rash. It was something like this, right? So we gave a bit of context as to who he is: successful investor, drive nice cars. But it wasn't always like this, and this is what pushes people to the next slide. Okay. So yeah, I would do something like that here as well. What the idea I gave him would be a transformation would be good, right? So he was once someone with zero financial knowledge, but in just 10 years, he's now someone who earns 10 million, right? So instantly people will be curious, like, oh, how did he do that? What are the steps he did? Okay. The next tip that I'll give him is like really to think about the ICP that we're trying to target, right? So in this case, likelihood, if someone were to be reading this, talking about building financial knowledge from scratch, likelihood the ICP, or what we call the ideal client profile, or the ideal customer profile that we want to target for this carousel would be beginners in finance, right? So I would speak directly to the pain point that they have, which is that many of these people don't have any mentors or family members that are financially literate. And so like what we can talk about in this slide instead is about how to circumvent that lack of mentor or authority figure by actually reading books created by people who are at the dream life that they want to read, right? So instead of saying reading finance books, we can use more, I guess, vulgar or more like direct language. For example, steal from the best, right? Steal from the best, or like steal knowledge from the best. This isn't like the exact hook because I want my intern to go and like think about it, but yeah, just something along these lines, which I think would ignite more curiosity, so that when people read the title, they will want to read what it's actually talking about. Okay, another thing is like grammar, right? So it's very important to have good grammar and sentence structure, right? Because once people are confused, they would end up not reading it, right? So if I were to read this, when I was 18, I came across the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Like, because this is not capitalized, we cannot assume that we know, like everybody knows what Rich Dad Poor Dad is. So this needs to be capitalized. Okay, there's another example later on, which is here. So knowing what type of investments is crucial financial knowledge. So this is obviously like wrong sentence structure. It's very important that people are not confused. If not, they will definitely swipe away. Okay. Again, like this is a pretty generic, boring kind of like in title. It's basically what everybody says, and it doesn't make the reader want to read what is below, right? It doesn't make the reader want to swipe again as well. Okay, so it really needs to drive a good title. All right. Next one is this, right? So for most content and most carousels, we usually want to have like one call to action, right? In this case, like I think it's not that bad if he's trying to link it to another video, but I would say like some things to take note of is number one, people are super lazy, right? So they may not want to actually go to your profile and actually click on the post. what you can do nowadays, especially with ManyChat, you can basically say DM me blah 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 blah. I'll send you some thoughts on investments, right? And essentially what it will send is that profile. I mean that post. Okay. You also need to be less salesy, right? So basically, I did a post on blah blah. You can check it out. It's just XXX post away. That's also possible. Okay. Next, another hook, another title that is not going to inspire curiosity. This is just something that everybody says, right? Again, like this is not wrong advice. This is correct advice actually. But because it's something everybody says, it's something boring. Nobody's going to want to read below. Okay. And when people read it, they're just gonna think like, oh duh, like what? Why am I spending my time and weekend, looking through this carousel when it's just telling me the most generic advice? Okay. If you look at the reference, which is here, you can see that the way that the guy has structured it, or the way that the guy says it, is something that doesn't sound like, it doesn't sound salesy, right? Listen, follow the best voices. I think that can be directly applied to this. And it is literally the same as saying listen to finance podcast, but in a way that people will be curious, like, hey, what does it mean by that? And then they start reading on. Okay. Yeah, another thing about this slide which I have a bit of issue with is that, as you can see, it says listen to finance podcast. I made this podcast to help people know about investing in finance through sharing by other successful people. First of all, like, this is a bit too long, right? Usually for carousels, another tip is we want to try to keep it within 2 lines, just because of like ease of reading, right? If people see like a whole chunk of words, they are less likely to read it. And the next thing is that this doesn't really relate to the tip, right? You need to first give value, right? So for example, talking about how he learned a lot just by listening to some of the greats, right? It could be also about how podcast is just like hearing direct advice from successful people, right? Which is invaluable, right? You cannot put a value to that kind of advice. So I would preface it with that first, and then I would say, oh, by the way, I actually do have a podcast where I interview some of the richest people in Singapore, and then people would be actually interested to go and listen, right? You can't just like assume that because you say things people are going to listen. That's not the right mindset. You need to actually build value first, give people a reason for why they should want to listen, or why they should want to go and check it out. Okay, lastly, like I think you see like some similar issues here. Join learning community sounds like a duh kind of thing. Yes, there's value here, but you need to go and like think back as to whatever I've said in the past few slides, because there's like, okay, so I give you an example. So you need to think about the ICP, think about what are their pain points. For example, in this case, I would say don't go through this finance journey alone, because that's something that a lot of people will relate to, and that they will want to look at how they cannot go through this journey alone, right? There's also some disconnect between this and the title, right? There's no like if I just saw like learning community, like what does that actually mean? Like, is it like a virtual one? Is it like in-person one? Where can I actually join this learning community? As you can see, like this page does not actually talk about that, right? And since like, okay, this is not really true, I just realized he's not really talking about journey, but you can also talk about how, as an authority figure, him earning 10 million, he wished that he had this resource, and it will have helped him achieve 10 million much faster. These are some ways that you can actually direct people to his mentorship. Okay, and lastly, there's no CTA at the end, so I would say like there's quite a lot of changes to be made, but I hope like going through this example of this carousel actually helps you to avoid same mistakes that my intern is making. Okay. So now that I've gone through all that, oh my god, we are at 45 minutes. I want you to go and create, right? So go make mistakes. I'm still making a lot of mistakes in my carousels, but carousels give you the best opportunity because you can make them fast, right? You won't feel like, oh shit, I took so much time to create this carousel and then I posted it, got like a few hundred views or a few thousand views. It's not like a reel, right? I think reels take much longer, and carousels give you more time to like sit down, think. You can continuously change and adapt, improve your carousels, So definitely I want to see those carousels that are being created. You can definitely tag me in my handle when you've created them. Right, I'll link it here, marcus.restive, and you can tag me and I will, this is my Instagram handle, right? You can tag me, I will go and look through, give you guys some feedback as to how you can improve your carousels. And I hope this was something informative, giving away everything free that I know. I hope this actually helps you guys, and if you need any extra support, I do host free webinars from time to time. I also have my own agency, so do think of us when you need any help, and we'll be more than happy to help you. Alright, so hope you guys enjoyed this series. We're posting more, so do remember to like and follow as well, so you stay updated as to when we release the next tutorial. Thank you.